Serious, what was your biggest we need to leave now moment? Was 15/16 at a house party with my good friend, another girl. There were some gate crashers who turned up, which weren't unusual at London house parties, but these guys were older, and there was just a vibe. A girl I vaguely knew was very drunk and being surrounded by them, and I asked her if she was okay and she told me to fuck off, I'm fine. I looked at my friend and said to her, I'm gonna call my mom and dad to come get me, do you want a lift? My parents were always amazing and said to me that if I was at a party or out and for any reason didn't want to be where I was, I could call them and they would come and get me. My parents turned up, coats on over pajamas, and took us both home. Apparently half an hour after we left, someone was stabbed, the girl we had asked earlier was sexually assaulted, and lots of stuff was stolen and people beaten up and held up at knife point. I had such a feel in the air that I've hardly felt before or since, and knew we needed to not be there. I posted this in a similar one of these threads a couple of months ago, but I'll paste it over here. I used to drive for Lyft. April 2018, I picked up a young couple from a bar at about 1:30 a.m. They were fairly chill and I figured it would be my last ride of the night. The dude asked me to stop at a corner store on the way to their destination so that he could get cigarettes. I didn't see any harm in waiting, so I stopped, and had a nice chat with the young woman while he was in the store. He ended up being about 5 minutes since everyone was trying to get their pre-2 beer. When he came out, he asked me to take him to a location that was in the opposite direction of their destination, but was only about a mile away. He said he wanted to meet some friends real quick and grab some beer. Since I figured it would be my last ride of the night, I said, fuck it, why not, and drive him over there. Now, I know the town we live in fairly well, but the direction that we were coming from was not a way I was used to going when I would go to this location. So when I turned onto the destination street, I missed the turn into the complex parking lot. I just came to a complete stop since the roads were empty and asked them if they just wanted me to park on the street or pull into the complex. This is when the two of them started arguing, as he suddenly wanted to go in and hang out for a few minutes while she didn't want to go in at all. She just wanted him to do his thing and get out of there so they could go home. And then something hit my car. The sound is unmistakable to me, so I immediately started to look around to figure out what it was. But there were no other cars on the road, so that couldn't have been it. Then I moved to the next thing on my mental checklist: if something didn't hit me, then what did I hit? But that didn't make any sense either, as I'd been in park and couldn't have hit anything. It's at this point that the young lady's attitude completely changed. She just kinda looked around, and then said, can we just get out of here? It hurts and I want to go home. This was odd to me, as she'd been sitting in my car for about 10 minutes at this point and hadn't said a word about any kind of pain. She followed this up with, it hurts and I can't move, put her head to her back, and pulled it out covered in blood. What the fuck? So the guy starts freaking out, thinking that something in my trunk had exploded, but it was empty. As he reached over to tend to her, I noticed something white sticking out of the seat. This hadn't been there at the beginning of the night, so I asked him what it was. He pulled on it. It was a piece of the filler fuzz from my seat. It came out of the hole that had been made in the seat. Because she'd been shot. As soon he grabbed that fuzz, we both had the same realization. He slammed shut his door and I drove them straight to the hospital, which was only a couple of miles away. That realization, and the follow-up realization of, oh, someone could still shoot you while you're sitting here, was one of the most terrifying things I'd ever experienced. Holy shit. Was the girl okay? As far as I know, she ended up being okay. I took her straight to the hospital immediately after the incident, as it was only a couple miles away from where it happened. However, once we'd gotten the police involved and everything settled down a bit, when I went back the next day to check on her condition, the hospital stonewalled me, because even though I was the one who had brought her in, and I knew the time and everything, they would not give me any information because I did not have her name. The only info I ever got was from a detective about a week or so later. He also refused to give me her name, but he did tell me that she made it out of surgery and was going to be okay. Yeah. That's good news. What a wild-ass story. Do you still drive for Lyft after all that? Yeah, I drove Lyft full-time until about last November. I ended up picking up a new full-time job, so I've put that on the back burner. The only driving I've done since then was on Thanksgiving because I was bored, but I ended up being one of the only drivers out that evening, so I drove 6 solid hours and made actual decent money. I was kind of a nice return, but I don't really have the urge to spend most of my free time in my car waiting for calls anymore. When I was 15, a friend and I went for a lot of walks around town, small town, around 5-6K people. We were going to the cyber cafe in town to meet a few friends and we often took different streets to get places, just to keep it interesting. We were about to go to Main Street off one of the side streets and a man on a bicycle approached us. He got off his bike and asked us a couple small talk questions. Something didn't seem right about him, he was probably mid-40s. We both kept inching away but didn't want to come off as too rude, so we answered about the weather or traffic. Then he paused and we said we had to go, and he said, and I'll never forget it, "You look so young, I don't want to get in trouble, but I need to touch someone. I just need to touch you. You should come with me." And he started rambling. I just felt terror, couldn't even speak. I grabbed my friend's hand and turned. We sprinted the rest of the way to the cafe and as soon as we were inside we asked to use the phone. I called my mom to pick us up while my friend told the worker what happened and what the guy looked like. A month later I got my first cell phone.